Hey, welcome to the Nerdy Pilot, and don't mind over my shoulder here, that's my cat, Miss Molly. Usually when I film, she likes to park in that cat bed, so I guess we can say she's the director. How about that? So in this episode, I want to share a great story with my dear close friend, Larry Brown. Larry passed away recently on Valentine's Day, 2026, and I can't wait to tell you about him and the misadventures we had in flying. But I'll only do one story today. We'll keep it short. So I met Larry in 1990, and how I met Larry was kind of fun because back in those days, before we had the internet, we had bulletin board systems. Does anyone remember the BBS days? You know, you had your computer, modem, you had your little terminal program, and you could connect to the local bulletin boards in your area. And you were probably restricted to a pretty small area due to, back in those days, long distance fees. So anyway, Larry had a bulletin board that he had, and it was in support of the Civil Air Patrol Squadron. And I had a hobby bulletin board that had multiple phone lines, and I had files. I had a satellite downlink. I was really way into it. So I got to connect to his system and learn about the Civil Air Patrol. I'd always been interested in participating with them because there was search and rescue stuff. I was finishing up my flight training. I got my private pilot license 2 years later. But anyway, we got to chatting, and not only did we have that common interest with the bulletin boards and aviation, but also in the National Guard. I was a traditional guardsman at my local Bangor Air National Guard base, and Larry was an active duty U.S. Air Force KC-135 pilot. And I believe his role was he was the liaison between active duty Air Force and the National Guard. I believe that was his role. And so obviously to a guy like me who's finishing up his flight training, and I've made this new friend who's a KC-135 pilot, oh my God, I mean, yeah, how lucky can you get? You have all these shared interests and you have someone you can ask questions to. Plus, you know, he was the commander of the Civil Air Patrol Squadron, so you have that going as well. So a lot of commonalities, and a great friendship was struck very quickly. One of the things we enjoyed doing was flying the F-16 flight sim. Spectrum Holobyte had released Falcon 4 back in the day, and that was our jam. Yes, I know, 256 colors, can you believe it? So anyway, I want to reel this back in here to stay on focus. So Larry was a very accomplished pilot and a lot of skills, and he invited me to join the Civil Air Patrol, which I was happy to do so, and he ran a really tight ship. It was really, I've been in and out of the Civil Air Patrol at that age group, and it went, depending on who the commander was, you know, could very much shape your experience. And he had some really great people in that program. So myself going in as a pilot, you know, they had a really strong cadet program. The kids were having a great time. Historically, I've seen with Civil Air Patrol, sometimes the cadet program can be a little rough. Usually you get someone that, you know, probably wouldn't have made it through boot camp, but they but they give orders like Rommel, you know, so real tough on the kids. But Larry made it a really great time. And a lot of the opportunities came over the years where we had the opportunity to fly together. And the airplane that we had was like most Civil Air Patrol airplanes of that era, a Cessna 172 with a probably rather weak engine, but a lot of equipment on board. So on this particular trip, it was an evening flight because the airplane was usually booked up during the day, and we wound up doing a lot of night flying. So the airplane, it was a nice summer evening. The airplane happened to be available for some night flying, which we enjoyed doing. And I can't remember about what time we took off. We probably took off around 7:30, and I think we did some things in the practice area, maybe some steep turns, that kind of thing. And then we decided to head back, and we were going to just do some practice touch and goes. And that was, you know, kind of our thing for, you know, kind of a fun, you know, guys' night out in the airplane, I guess you could say. But also on board this airplane, and again, I believe this was probably 1993 or 94. Again, maybe someone can correct me. One of the things the Civil Air Patrol during that era had been given was the first generation of Kodak digital cameras. So of course, being the nerds that Larry and I were back in the day, well, I still am, and now he's hanging out with St. Peter. But anyway, they gave us these digital cameras, and I think by modern standards, I don't remember what the resolution is. I'll probably put it in the text here down below. But these things were huge. I mean, they were they weren't quite this big, but I mean, these were not that tiny little power shots or obviously smartphones that we have nowadays. So it was a pretty big, bulky unit, and it couldn't take that many pictures. And I believe the intent was that, and I think the Civil Air Patrol was participating with the DEA. It sounds more cool than it really is, guys. Is that what was going on was, since we live in the rural state of Maine, and of course we're just trotting along in a Cessna 172, the idea was if we saw any clandestine airstrips, which in a rural area like this, there's many, the idea was to snap pictures, let us know, where on the map they are, and maybe they'll investigate them further. Who knows? So anyway, all that said, we had this digital camera in the airplane. So we're flying and we're doing our touch and goes in and out of Bangor, and KBGR for those of you looking on the map. And I can't remember how many touch and goes into it we were, but we were taking turns doing the takeoffs and landings. And again, having Larry in that front right seat was great because he was always, again, he's a very experienced pilot, and here I am with maybe 160 hours at the time, just trying to get better and better. So on one of the approaches, as we're coming in, I had this idea. I'll take the fault, I'll take the hit. And I thought, hey, Larry, we should use that camera and maybe grab a picture of ourselves while we're flying, because hey, we're pilots. We want to have that amazing picture and our chin up and the scarf flying, and look, all that. So Larry was like, yeah, sure, set it up. So I got it, out of the bag, powered it on, and, put it on the dash in front of us on the 172. And as we come in, we make our takeoff. We've done our landing, our touch. Now we're going. And as we're starting to do a steady climb, I'm like, okay, Larry, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, and I pushed the button. Now, the flash was brilliant. I mean, like, wow. And in hindsight, you're just thinking, why would you do this? This is stupid. But I don't think we'd ever used the camera before, so we had no idea what to expect. But certainly, that flash bulb in our eyes, I don't know. I mean, it was really, really bright. So we take the picture, poof. Our eyes suddenly just narrow, and we're just like keeping an eye on the instruments like, wow, that was really bright. And then across the radio comes, hey, here in the tower, we just saw our brilliant flash come from the cockpit. Are you guys all right? And we look at each other and we just start busting up laughing. The fact that they could see this and the fact that we're blinded the way we were, oh my goodness, it would probably be an investigation nowadays. So anyway, we radioed back, nope, we're fine, all is good. We had just snapped a photo and everything's okay. And then we continued to do a couple more touch and goes and park the airplane safely and call it a night. But that was one of our many of our favorite stories, and like I said, one that Larry and I enjoyed sharing over the years, and it was fun to have that mentioned as part of his eulogy last month. So with that, I say, first of all, Larry, I certainly miss you. We had a lot of good times. To his family and friends who might be watching this, this is just the kind of stuff that he and I would do. We're always having a good time. And also, I want to close this with that very low resolution, awesome picture of Larry and Paul with hair blasting their eyes out for one of the first selfies 30 years before they became popular. Thanks for watching. Until the next one.